Hi, y'all. I'm Katie Parker. I am an alcoholic. I am from Texas. That's darned important. People think Texas is the South. It is Texas. It is not the South. The South is on that side of Texas. We believe in doing it big in Texas. There is no doubt about it, boy. Is everybody out of the bathroom? I swear, at one point I thought, I'm never going to make it. This is not going to happen. Because I thought we were going to roll right into it. So I handed Jill a message, said, you're going to have to buy me some time after the 10-minute speaker. I got to go to the bathroom. And she's like, and I'm a female alcoholic, so I can pee fast, let me tell you. Yeah, we got a lot of experience in that. I've been sober since October the 28th of 1984. It's 27 years. I do need to correct you. And that is 5.5 months more than my husband. And, people say, time doesn't matter. And that's a lie. I'm just going to clear that up right now. That is a big, fat lie. And in our house, when things get tough, and Charlie's having a hard time, I tell him, honey, it'll all make more sense in about 5.5 months. I really. You do not know how grateful I am that I have more sobriety than he does. Primary Purpose Group is my home group in Austin, Texas. We study the Big Book line by line, word by word. And, there was a time in my sobriety that was not a big deal to me. And I'm very excited to be somewhere where the Big Book is a big deal. But in 27 years, I've got various concepts of my sobriety. And we're studying the Big Book with 175 people once a week on Tuesday nights at 7:30. If you're ever in the area, please stop by. That tells me there is a desperate need for the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous to resurface in Alcoholics Anonymous. And for that, some of us believe strongly in it, and we take arrows from the front and the back. The minute you start quoting the book, whew, it can get dicey. And, I have a personality that's a lot like taking a drink out of a fire hose. I'll admit it. I'll blow your lips right off your face. And I've been like that all my life. This isn't anything new. You got to keep me on a short chain, And I'm a woman, and I got time in sobriety. So, it's like I have a lot of opinions. You'll hear them. And I ask you to do two things with that. One is to say the set-aside prayer for my personality. If I'm the kind of gal that bugs you, say the set-aside prayer right now. Because there is so much about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I know I'm at the mothership. Don't get me wrong. I have landed at the mothership. And I'm somewhere where everybody loves the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that is fantastic. And that's not the case everywhere. And I have to constantly remind myself, I must pray in understanding and effectiveness. Because my message sometimes can blow your lips off, and you're not hearing a word I say, because if your ego's like my ego, and the minute I disagree with you, I'm going to have to blow you up. That's what I do. I sit here, and I don't like the fact that I judge everybody. Everybody. But I do. But I have a lot of tools in that judgment as to what to do with those. They can be passing thoughts, or I can act on them. And if I act on them, it's probably going to be a problem. I loved meeting Pam. This is one of the few. I've had the opportunity to speak at several fellowships of the Spirit. And this one being the mothership is very, they're very well organized. The ones I've been at, I've been at 3, and 2 were organized, and 1 was not organized. But this one's very organized. So you're going to get about 800 phone calls from y'all. And that's a lot of phone calls, especially when you have about 9 other events ahead of Fellowship of the Spirit. You know what I mean? It got down to where do you want green beans or mashed potatoes? You know what I mean? I'm like, make a decision for me. Okay, I got to go to 9 other of these events, and you guys are going to have to make a decision. And Pam, when I finally got a hold of Pam, see, I thought Jill had originally called and said, you're being considered. Pardon me? Oh, I could have done without that call. And Charlie goes, well, that's kind of normal, Kate. I went, oh, shut up. How many times have you been considered? He goes, well, never. I went, thank you. So then I get a call from Karen, who is the coordinator of the PAMs. Okay, so now, see, very lot of positions. And I admire it, but it's not how they all are. So Pam, I don't know who I'm quite meeting at the airport at this point, but it's Pam. And so Pam sends me an email, and it's priceless. Katie, my name is Pam, and I'm pleased to be your speaker for the upcoming Fellowship of the Spirit. I'm looking forward to meeting you and your husband and getting to know you both. I thought we should touch base and make plans for transportation. Your Southwest flight will typically arrive in Concourse C. From there, you can take the train to the main terminal, Jespin. That's the big white tent. I was just in the Denver airport the month before twice, but that's okay. She didn't know that. I know the big white tent. You will get off, this is the line I loved. You will get off the train by coming up either the escalator or the elevator. That will be your choice. Okay, gets better. When you step out of the main terminal, you will see a big fountain. It may or may not be working. From there, turn left and walk under the walkway. On the other side, you will see the statue of Mr. Jespin. Meet me there. If that isn't enough, we have a picture of the statue and then a little trivia about the guy. I loved it. I thought, oh, this gal is good. She is good. And then, as you know, we didn't even get out of Austin for 7.5 hours. And I swear, Pam, it was like, Pam, God love you. Okay, I'm seasoned at this thing, but you don't know that. So I appreciate that. You know, I could have been from Undershirt, Iowa, and never flown before. So she had it well planned. So thank you, Pam. Yeah. You know, it's funny because the getting out of Austin was quite a trip, you know, and Charlie and I know how to work an airport. Oh, my God, we are such alcoholics. We are scamming from the minute we get out of bed. I actually scam when my eyes open in bed. You know what I mean? Pink. And so we know how to work an airport. We know how to go through the VIP line when we're not VIP, you know, I mean, duh. And it depends on how late you are at the airport, and all of a sudden I become VIP. See, I'm VIP for FOT, so they don't need to know that. So we get to the airport, and there all of a sudden the guy comes out and says, "Man, we got a problem with the plane." He says, one of the props, you know, in that big engine is bent." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a big problem. That's not a light out in the bathroom. I won't be flying on that plane till you guys get a different plane." And they said it'll probably take 4.5 hours. And I'm thinking 4.5 hours, and so we go downstairs because we're going to get Chad on the flight with us, right? And because he's supposed to fly on a later flight, and the guy down at the front says, "Man, let me warn you, if they bring a plane in here in an hour, they're going to leave without you, and you'll be flying standby from that point on out of here." Well, that kind of gets me worried. So it's like, you know what, we're in. We're stuck in our own darn city for 7 hours. How does that suck? You know? And so, of course, I'm going to see it as it sucks because that's my default setting. And so all of a sudden we start running into people in the airport. Chad gets there. We start to have a little party. Charlie goes, gets a massage, you know. And so we get on the plane, and this was the part that cracked me up. If you saw my husband yesterday do the third step, he was talking about there was a problem on row 15. And, there was a big problem on row 15. That pilot and I would have done it very differently. You know, he did it his way, and I would have done it in a whole nother way. And he comes out and he goes, "Well, folks," leans up against that edge. He goes, "We got another problem. And that problem is now we got weather. And they have grounded this plane." And he takes about 120 words, what could have been said in about 4. And then he goes, "What we're going to do, though, is I think we're going to be able to get out on that tarmac right now and sit to be first in line." I like the way this guy thinks. Let's sit out there, and the minute they say go, let's all go. Well, then he goes, "Does anybody have any questions?" I'm like, dude, you can't ask that question to people who've been with, you know, and then that one woman raises her hand and she goes, "Is there any guarantee that my flight will stay at the connection?" I thought, oh, see, you blew it. You blew it, buddy. And from that point on, I cannot begin to tell you what it took for me not to stand up and go, shut up, get back in the cockpit, and shut the door, and get us to the front end of that line. That is your job. Grow it, get it, and go. Jeez Louise. And Chad seems to be the more spiritual. He's just looking out the window like the 4-year-old kid. And Charlie and I have our heads together go, well, what the hell kind of question is, don't even ask a question. And then I swear he must ask 3 more times. Any more questions? Any more questions? I thought, no. And I've always found that interesting that's called the cockpit, but we won't even go there. So I know that's a long-standing joke. But another thing that happened is, so we get here, and it takes us forever. And then we drive down a stretch of road that I don't call that a highway. I call that winding through some mountainous terrain, where it's got runaway trucks and, watch out and you better put chains on and, we have surveillance cameras watching every move you make and we're not kidding here. Did you see those signs? We're not kidding. We're serious. Don't be screwing around now. So we get here and then we hear all about the altitude, and this is how you'll hear as in my story. I will eventually get into my story, but this altitude thing, I'm not well educated, and I'll get into all that later. But my daughter moved to Seattle, and we're sitting there in Seattle, and we're sitting at a restaurant, and there's the ocean or the Pacific or the Atlantic, whatever one that big piece of water is, and I'm looking at it. I said, April, I am so tired. What? Well, are we at a really high altitude here? She goes, Mother, we're at sea level. And I said, well, isn't that Mount Rainier right over there? She goes, you have to be on it to be at a different level. Well, I'm still tired. Oh, and when we get to the airport, I'm not kidding you. Charlie and I consider ourselves very seasoned. We have, when you get the privilege of speaking behind the podium, you can get asked a lot if they like you. And so we're traveling next month, 3 times. We got this deal down, and the most bizarre thing happened in the Denver airport. I grabbed the wrong bag. I couldn't believe it, and then drove 2 hours. Couldn't have been a bad move, bad move. And what was even worse is I grabbed Mamie Davis's bag. You think Mamie and I got anything in common? Mamie. I opened Mamie's bag when we got to the room just to see in case she might have my same taste. No, Mamie had a pair of granny panties in there that I had never seen anything quite like it. I mean, it's like, oh, we got no shot at all. Okay, I got to get started. Yeah, we had to pay $80. I told Charlie, I don't care what it takes. Get my bag. It's my makeup, which would be considered my mask. I'm not going out in the world without my mask. And so we paid a hefty price for that guy to drive that bag all the way over here. See, they're not very forgiving when you take someone else's bag. So, one thing about these flags, this was very awesome, and I'm glad that you recognize the Texas flag is the largest of them all. But one of the things was is that one the Swiss flag with the cross on it? Okay. Well, the reason I know that, I was in Switzerland one time for business, and I had to speak in front of about 2,000 people. As you can tell, I love a microphone. And I get locked in a bathroom, way down a hall. Nobody even knows I'm in there. And I mean, I'm doing this. I am screaming, help me! And I'm thinking, nobody knows I'm down here. And I'm a lot like Ellen as far as our personalities. In Texas, that happens, And I mean, I am scared that this guy finally hears me. And he pulls me out of there, and I find my girlfriend. I tell her, oh, my God, this wonderful man help me. We're going to stand over underneath that Red Cross flag and have our picture taken. We were in Switzerland. She said, you mean the Swiss flag? I went, shut up. I did see them all over the place. I thought, well, maybe they have a lot of people who have heart murmurs or something, They need a lot of Red Cross. I mean, they had that Red Cross flag everywhere. So you will see the lack of education come up in my world. And you will see that I really am fine with it. Just fine. On a side note, the Statue of Liberty is not a man, just in case you were wondering. You can ask me later about how I found that out. You know, the book, I love what the book says on page 29, because a lot of people usually refer to, you know, what I was like, what happened, and what I'm like now, and I don't honestly spend a lot of time in my drinking. I hope by the time I get behind this podium, I can clearly qualify myself quickly. But I believe it's about living sober, period. And, you know, at these conferences, when I sit down with the new guy, it's all about my drinking. It's all about understanding what precedes that first drink. I get all that. But in this environment, I don't think that's not necessarily important for me, because my experience in 27 years sober is way more important. But it's on page 29, it says, each individual describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. That's what I'm going to do. That's what my 27 years has been about. See, I suffered from a disease that started long before I took that drink. I loved Ellen last night. Isn't she dynamic? Oh, God almighty. She just, you know, and when you hear the life the Al-Anons lead, you know, or lived, it's just heartbreaking, you know, to hear her talk about those grandbabies having the disease of alcoholism, you know, and one of them in prison, one of those twin boys. You think that's a little tough? You bet. You bet. In this program, I am so about the semantics of this program staying pure, because if my grandson has the disease of alcoholism, I don't want people to think that you always go home and do the 6th and 7th step. You do the hour in the 5th step. I don't want people to think the 10th step is an evening review. I want this thing to stay pure and whole for my grandson. Are you with me on that? Yeah, and I you know, I have certainly learned a lot by not nailing somebody in meeting base situation, right? Somebody raises their hand and says, yeah, well, the 10th step evening review, you know, I don't want to go. You know, but what I will do is after the meeting's over, I'll beeline it over to them and clarify it. See, that's my job. It really is my job. I mean, I am the sheriff, you know, and really, I know you might think you are. I am. And my sponsor, I've worked very hard at how I can do this, because I'm driven to be sure that these things stay in order. And it's an amazing way that I have gifted to be able to say it to this person and to kind of clarify it for my grandson. You see, instead of coming at him going, hey, listen, man, you clearly, do you even have a big book? Can you hear? Yeah, isn't that lovely? Doesn't the ego just love that one? Well, as a child, oh my gosh, I mean, I was so driven, you guys. I'm still driven. I'm passionate. I have a very high amount of energy. I was in the fitness business 30 years. I mean, I am just on fire. But I've been like this all my life. So you get me outside of those 12 steps, and I'm dangerous as can be. You get me involved heavily in the 12 steps, I'm as passionate as can be. I'm fiercely loyal to whatever the cause is. And so as a child, I'm driven. I am driven like crazy. I knew there was something wrong with me early on. Of course, I didn't really get it. It wasn't that I didn't feel I fit in. That's never felt like what I was feeling. I felt like I just had to be the best at everything. I mean, when you did Red Rover, I'm coming over, man. I'm taking you out. You know, that was just my nature, you know. And I swear to God, they said, I don't think you can swim all the way down at the end of the pool and back with one breath. Oh, really? I'll die trying. I mean, I remember those last about 8 pulls, and I thought, I'm getting a little lightheaded. You know, I'm like 8 years old. But I was driven from the minute my feet hit the ground into this life. And I look back at all those experiences, and, you know, here's the deal. When you begin to, you know, you have to look back at your life. You have to look at your childhood. For gosh sakes, that formed a tremendous amount of my old ideas. It didn't make me alcoholic, but it is very, very important. My years in sobriety, you know, you're 3 years sober, you got old ideas on 3 years sober. You're 10 years sober, you got old ideas on 10 years sober. You're 20 years sober, I think old ideas actually get worse because they're usually behind a good motive. You know, by God, nobody's going to do that to my AA group, right? And so, I'm constantly got to check this stuff because I'm completely blinded to it. And one of the things is that, I'm 54 years old. I got sober when I was 26 years old. I mean, I'm clearly on the back nine, right? It's not hard to figure that one out. I mean, I certainly just hope I'm not putting on the 18th hole today, you know what I mean? But one of the things is about that is I gotta constantly see that the most satisfying years of my existence lie ahead. And that's what I got to ask myself. Am I content today? Am I happy today? That's the nature of what this is all about, right? This is what spiritual growth is all about. And so I ended up, and I ask you to lay your own experience up against that, because we're a room full of people. That's not our nature. Our nature is to see that glass half full or half empty. Which one is it? Thank you. Half empty. Did that still have the impact it had when I started it? Darn. So, I clearly know that in this deal, I am merely the vessel. I am the vessel to get you connected to the power. I am not the power. I am not the one that you need to call me every day. I don't want to be that way. In early sobriety, that's crucial. But after you got time and after we're getting this deal going, I got to get you connected to the power. And you got to call me when you're resentful, dishonest, selfish, or afraid. I don't want you checking in. I'm not a check-in. Don't check in with me. Because if you're checking in, you're grading your own paper. Right? And I get very, very scared in that arena. And remember, I told you from the get-go, I was driven. But at 8 years old, my mother gets sick. And I mean, it was like overnight. She had a kidney disease. Overnight, my mother died. And my dad comes in. He tells us, your mother just died last night. And I remember, and he said, let's not cry. Because, it was 1966. Let's not cry. We're going to make it through this. My dad was an ex-football player. Played for the Steelers 1 year. That's my claim to fame. And my dad did the best job he could do with 3 kids. We were all 2 years apart. And I remembered at that point thinking, oh my God, this is going to be tough. And the next thing I know, he moves in. He gets married 3 times in an 18-month period. And he had 4 live-in housekeepers. I'm not quite sure what was going on there. But put that together, and that makes 7 women. Is that 7? Yeah. It looks like 8, but it's 7. That makes 7 women coming through our life in an 18-month period. And I swear to God, when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I'd have told you that's exactly what made me alcoholic. Because I came into Alcoholics in the 80s where we were trying to figure out why we were alcoholic. I don't know if that was happening in your area, but that was happening in my area. And so we were all about figuring out why I was alcoholic, and that was clearly why I was alcoholic. Today I understand that that's what formed my old ideas. But it is not what made me alcoholic. What makes me alcoholic is I got a genetic bullet. See, when I start, I can't stop. And I can't stop starting. And that, I can lay all my experience up against that, and that's the facts. And the truth of the matter is when I look back at my life, at 12 years old, I started drinking. And oh my God, I loved what alcohol did for me. I loved it on my first drink. I loved the burn. I loved everything about it. And I knew at that point that whatever it did for me, we were going to do it more often in any way I could find it. And at 12, it's like Ellen said, I have a lot of experience with outside issues. I'm very respectful of singleness purpose. But at 12, it was easier to find outside issues than it was to always get your hand on booze. But I did, what we used to have to do is sit in front of the 7-Eleven. And you sat, and the girls know this one well. You sit in front of the 7-Eleven about 12 years old, and you wait for the creepy guy. And the creepy guy pulls up, and you go, there's my mark. And you'll go, hey, can you go buy us some booze? And he goes, I absolutely can. That is one sick, creepy guy, right? And he comes out with the booze, and he's thinking, we are 12. Now, we're not innocent 12. Don't get me wrong. I'm not in the Girl Scouts with the banner. You know what? I am the 12-year-old that's wild. And so the biggest deal that we had to do was to get rid of creepy guy. And so at that point, when he gave us the booze, we weren't in a car. We were on our bicycles. And we'd shoot into the woods. And that's what we did, to lose creepy guy. Right? Because that's the biggest deal of the world, is to get rid of creepy guy. He's kind of like trying to flick a booger off your finger, man. You got to be quick. And you look back, he's still there. Man, he is still there. Quick, left at the tree. And before you know, you're like, and Then you unscrew that, Boone's Farm apple wine, and you just drink it down. And you know what's interesting, guys, is, Creepy Guy's here in the room today. I'd like to welcome Creepy Guy. I'm assuming Creepy Guy was probably one of us. But, it brings me to a point that is really important to say right now. And that is, I told you I got a lot of opinions. But one of the things that I see happen in Alcoholics Anonymous with the women and the men is we're very mixed up on some levels. And the truth of the matter is we got a gal. Say we got the new gal who comes in. The only tool she has is sex. And she's been using it for a while. Now, that's not every woman, but trust me, it's most of us. And so what we do is we come into Alcoholics Anonymous, and we got the Creepy Guy in here, right? And the truth of the matter is the girl only knows to hit a mark. That's what we did in the bars, right? We look for the mark. And we're going to find the guy that's going to fix us. And so we're looking at this guy, and then all of a sudden I see Mickey over here, who's a married man, been married a long time, got a lot of sobriety. He looks kind of like a dad figure to me. And he'll take care of me. And I know I can go to Mickey if I need anything, but I'm trying to get old swinging cat daddy over here, right? He looks like a good catch. And the Creepy Guy I've managed to catch his eye because I've gotten up 7 times to get coffee. I don't see that I've caught Creepy Guy's eye because Creepy Guy's just kind of creepy. And all of a sudden, Creepy Guy just won't get out of my way. He's that booger you can't flick off your finger, Now, personally, what I do to Creepy Guys go, you are creeping me out, dude. Back up. But the truth of the matter is I'm trying to hit swinging cat daddy over here, so I go to Mickey. And I say, Mickey, there is a Creepy Guy over there that's really bothering me. And he says, really? Where is he? I will take care of this for you. And I've seen more people point out to the poor Creepy Guy. And I really believe that for us women, we can take care of ourselves. And that I hope that Mickey then would turn her to come over, talk to me. Come talk to me. And I'll address how many times I saw you go get coffee. Shaking it up. And that's what ends up happening in our fellowship. You see, guys, when you take away the booze, I got to use whatever I got. I don't have a toolkit, a spiritual toolkit at this point. And so I've got to really, really, really be able to. I see the women. This is how it shows up in Alcoholics Anonymous. The women come in. I don't like women. I just don't like women. It's an old idea. And the guys go, I know, you women, you have a hard time with that. Come on over here to these boys. We'll help you. Like, how the heck? And then you hear this one. There's not enough strong women in AA. Who's saying that? The boys. Could I show a hand of strong women in AA, please? Okay, thank you. Oh, jeez. I have to stand behind this podium one more time and slap one more person. But the truth of the matter is, guys, is when a woman comes up to you as a man and says, there are not enough strong women in AA, you go, you know what, honey, I'll help you. And you drag her right over to that strong woman. You get that strong woman's phone number. That's how you get the girls staying sober. Because, see, the only tool I had was sex. Period. Now, I used it as I saw fit, but that's what I did. And that's what ends up happening. I left home at 15 because I was an absolute pain in the neck to my father. I drove my dad absolutely crazy. He said, if you can't live under these rules, you have to go on. And so here's the other part of that story, though, guys, is I'm telling you, I absolutely, from the 2nd grade on when my mother died, I cheated my way through school, all the way through school. I knew that school was about social and it was not about education. And here's a really, really interesting piece. Thank God for the inventory process. Is because, my educational background is weak. It is lame. Lame. And I don't know geographically stuff. I'm not interested in museums. I really don't care about history. Really, I don't. And for some reason, people are like going, well, you should look into it more. No. See, you don't understand. It doesn't interest me at all. And the inventory process got me to understand that I was driven to get that diploma because I believed I was a loser if I didn't get that diploma because I had no interest in learning. And what I found out today is, for me, is that alcohol did not rob me of my education. I still don't want education today. We drove by Oklahoma State University, whatever OU is or whatever, and Charlie goes, God, that's just a gorgeous building. And I thought, looks like a prison. Does not look like, I mean, just, And you know, here's the deal is if you want to go back to school because you feel that alcohol robbed you of your education, I'll be your biggest cheerleader for you. But you see, you have to know if that's what you need. Don't go chasing something thinking it'll fix you. Because that's a lot of time, man. And I got a lot of people I watch go back to school and they drift from Alcoholics Anonymous. I see a lot go back to school and they make amazing changes in their life. But that's what you got to do with the inventory process. I swear we had a guy from Norway at our group. And my dear sponsee, Andy, is here, and she and I call her, we're dumb and dumber. I mean, we are so together on this education thing, and we get it, we get each other. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever. Okay, flag after flag after flag after flag. And, and so I'm sitting there, and this guy from Norway's at our meeting, and we say, she goes, you know, Katie, he's from Norwegia, right? And I said, silly, he is Norwegian. And there was about 5 people standing around this way. They just go. And then I married my husband, who comes from an entire family of educators. You think we got a little problem there? You think we got some old ideas coming together? His mother was a school teacher for 42 years. And Charlie's all about education. I swear I'll ask him, how do you spell something? He goes, let's sound it out. I'm like, dude, I said spell it. No, if you know what, conversation's over. Either give it to me or I'm going to find somebody else. I am not smarter than a 5th grader, and I am really okay with that. So, you know, and here's the other thing is, you know, I really don't care where Venezuela is. You know, and I know he came far away. I have no idea where he came from. I know it's out there, and it's outside of Texas. But, you know, and I'm very happy to have you, but don't try to show me a map. When I went to Oklahoma, they gave me a whole map. One guy just determined to teach me. It's like, but I was a very successful businesswoman because I was self-employed. Because see, I got a lot of game, and I know how to con, I know how to cheat, I know how to steal, I know how to do whatever I need to do to make whatever I need to make. And so I became a very successful businesswoman, and that's kind of the process of this whole deal. I have to tell you guys though. When I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I absolutely fell in love with the fellowship. I was one of the lucky ones. That's not the case for everybody. I fell in love with the fellowship. I fell in love with the laughter. It was one of those things where you just go, oh my God, I am just somewhere where I love these people. And let me tell you what the women did then. I think the more attractive a woman is, the more dangerous it is when she walks into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. There's 3 things that I see stand in the way of getting sober. Too rich, too smart, or too pretty. And for women, when you come in and you are so pretty, even the women won't come and talk to you. And that's what we need to stop. Stop that, stop that, stop that. I said the prettier she is, man, beeline it over there to her and welcome her. And that's what happened to me. I'll never forget this beautiful woman came. I'm assuming I'm pretty. Okay, let's get that out of the way. And if you don't believe it, that's okay, I do. So that's all good. And so this woman walks up to me, and I see her as beautiful, and she just took me by the arm, and I'm telling you what, she didn't leave my side. She called me 3 times a day. It was unbelievable. It wasn't you take my number. It wasn't me, she didn't give me her number. She took my number. And she's the one who called me. Are you going to a meeting? Can I get you here? Can I get you there? And I was just so doggone fortunate. What I didn't see happen, though, is from this point on, I really believe, I chased a boy into AA. 26 years old. I found out he was sober. Didn't quite know what that meant. And he had 6 years sober, and he was a big book thumper. And he knew this was all wrong. I had 10 minutes. He had 6 years. This is not right. And I kept saying, yes, it is. It's all right. Come into my vortex. Slowly wheel him in. Because, see, I know what I got the power, baby. You know what I mean? So I am slowly, come on. And lo and behold, he and I were married for 20 years. So I'm very, very grateful that somebody was not the arbiter of my sex life. Because we don't know. We really don't know. I can step in the middle of a sponsee when they got relationship issues, because page 70 talks clearly that if sex becomes troublesome. But until it's troublesome, I really don't get to do a whole lot. And so he read me the big book. I sat at his feet. Oh, it was just wonderful. And so what I didn't see happen was that the gifts of AA took me away. Because at about 3 years sober, what I had believed is that AA was for drinking. Counseling, codependency recovery, it was the 80s, was about learning about yourself and living. And church was about your spiritual growth. Sounded like a good equation. I'm 3 years sober. I really think the guy with 3 years is pretty asleep to understanding selfishness and self-centeredness. So I worked a program based on the abstinence of alcohol. Because, see, to me, my delusion said, there's nothing wrong with me. It was the booze. See, if you take away the drink, I'm the problem. But I didn't see that. I'm such a con, I can get anything I want. So what ended up happening behind all of that delusion is I worked a program based on the abstinence of alcohol. Selfish and self-centeredness. I was voted 4 years in a row most likable in school. I don't have it. You guys have it. Charlie really had it, but not me. And so I really, literally, made that decision and set it aside. And then when some people would talk about it, I thought, well, it's only because you're talking about selfish and self-centered when I drink. Oh, I was clearly selfish and self-centered when I drank, but not when you took away the drink. As a matter of fact, I got it from here. And so once I started seeing this, I worked the steps. We did the Joe and Charlie. We were all about the big book and everything. And how in the world can you drift from that? I'm here to tell you, you absolutely can drift to that. Because when the gifts come into your world, it becomes more important to have another baby. It becomes more important to get that better job. It becomes more important to get that bigger house, which means I have a mortgage. And the truth is I'm 3 years sober and I think I know everything. And everybody back there, the younger guys, can start sponsoring those people. I got shit to do. And that's what happened. And then you guys kind of started bugging me. Anybody know that one? Oh, come on. Nod your head or something. Yeah, I mean, you're a big group of big book thumpers, so let's not lose sight of that. And I swear I'd come into the meeting and be like, oh, there goes Big Head Doug again. Bandana Brian. Whew. They're just bugging the crap out of me. So I come home and Joe says, hey, Katie, he goes, let's go to church. No, I was raised Catholic, and, they were speaking, not Irish, Latin. They were speaking Latin. And I swear I get it all mixed up. You get one thing in my head, is there 52 states or 51 cards in a deck? I get it all screwed up. Once it goes up in there, it just goes. And so the guy is speaking Latin. Not pig Latin. And so I get nothing out of church, right? I don't have really a good or a bad. I just get nothing out of church. And so Joe says, let's go to church. No, Katie, this church is really cool. It's non-denominational, man. I've already gone. Got big screens. You sing, it's rocking, man. It's going to be great. And I remembered the line in the book that said, for if an alcoholic failed to enlarge his spiritual life. And I thought there was a period there. And there wasn't, let me tell you. But that's what I thought. I thought, okay, we'll go to church. Okay. So I get into that church. Oh, my gosh, you guys. Ooh, ha. I go in there, and I mean, you read those 12 lines, right? You're singing them, and you sing them for about an hour and a half. Same 12 lines. And so by the time you're done, you're just, and I am rocking out, and I fall in love with this church. And I realize it's my new place. And thank you guys at AA, but you all are kind of bugging me anyway, and I found the right place I need to go. And so what ended up happening, and I didn't see this, is I found Jesus. And in Texas, that's a big deal. Did you hear what Ellen said about the Baptist? Jesus. And I had to come back and tell you heathen alcoholics that you needed to find Jesus. That's the piece you were missing. Have you ever met that guy? Well, he's probably sitting in the room. Whew, man. And I'm here to tell you guys, see, I didn't just start going back to church. I love what Mark used to say. He said he goes, I see people pray and meditate their way right out of Alcoholics Anonymous. Doesn't matter if you're sitting on the top of a temple or you're kneeling in a church. It's in conjunction with and not instead of. And I did instead of. I see it happen all the time. So I'm in that church for 3 years, and before I know it, man, they are bugging the crap out of me. Can't stand anybody. They're always praying for Joe and I. Every time I say anything, they go, "We are praying for you." And I mean, I'm not kidding you. We were like chameleons. We looked Amish. I started wearing underwear. How do you like that? That's a big deal. It's a big deal. Because, you know, when we got to blend, we got to blend. I can blend anywhere. I can sit with a motorcycle crowd and I can sit with the junior league. I can blend anywhere. And that's what we do best. Man on page 73. Whatever actor I need to be, I can do it. So I tell Joe one day I pull up to an intersection, and this is when you could take a right on red. And this may seem like no big deal to you, but it was a big deal to me. When we can get anywhere faster, it's better. And so all of a sudden, this woman's not taking a right on red, and I'm thinking I'm going to have to shove her into the middle of that intersection in the name of Jesus to teach her a lesson. And I'm telling you, we ran off all our friends except Charlie. And Charlie and I were best friends, and that I'll get into that if I have a chance. But we were best friends, and he'd always say, "Oh, I guess your Christian principles." And it was like, yes, they say hate the sin, love the sinner. I hated them both. That's the truth. I'd tell you what you wanted to hear, but it wasn't what was going on in my mind. See, I'm alcoholic. I suffer from the disease of alcoholism. You glob too much church on that, and I'm all screwed up. For me, I got to have those 12 steps. Those 12 steps make me be able to blend with that crowd of people, but you guys are my people. By the time I got home, I went to Joe and I said, I'm not doing well. Almost shoved a woman in the middle of an intersection, and all feeling like Jesus was telling me I needed to do it. Not a good plan. And he said, "I'm not doing good either, Katie. What should we do?" And he said, "Let's go back to the noon meeting." So we went to the noon meeting, and I sat down, and I was at home because you're my people. I took a deep breath, and I leaned over to Joe, and I said, "Oh, my God, we're home. We're home." He said, "I know it." Patted me on the leg. And I'd love to tell you it was, unicorns and rainbows from that point on, and that is not my experience. As a matter of fact, I did have the pastor of the church call me, and he asked me why we weren't coming to church. And you know what I told him? I need to be able to sit in a room where I can say the F word and not be judged. And those are my people. Now, that may sound, you may judge me for having said that, but that's how I feel. I got to be able to get down and dirty. I got to illuminate every twist of character, every nook and cranny of my past. I am dark on the inside, guys. Dark, dark, dark. And I'm missing so many filters. And I believe I work a fundamental basic AA program. I do everything that is required of me to do. And this brain can be ugly. Ugly, ugly. Because of that level of selfish and self-centeredness. And that's the part where I didn't get. So Joe and I sit in there, and before you know it, man, we're sitting there, and we are in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous for another 10 years, and it never occurred to me to work the steps. How does that happen? Never occurred to me. Have you sat in that meeting with the guy who doesn't even want to hear the steps? Matter of fact, all they're doing is read them off the wall. They still think that a 10th step is an evening review. I mean, that was me. I didn't realize I'd hitched my wagon to middle of the road Alcoholics Anonymous. I call it meeting-based sobriety. Heck, I had 6 years at that point. I'm fine. I got it from here. I was sponsoring 6 women. I'd done all my codependency therapy. Heck, I could have a pseudo group in a little while after here and run the darn thing. I mean, I knew my therapeutic terminology, and I'd teach you boundaries. I'd teach you detachment. Anybody that bothers you, detach. Wouldn't you want me for your sponsor? You bet. And you need to lay some boundaries. So every time I listened to inventory, I said, "Let me tell you what you need to tell them." And that was how it always went. And I thought you could have hooked me up to a lie detector test. I'd have swore to God I was doing the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I love what it says in our big book. It says on page 25, it says, if you are a serious alcoholic as we were, we believe there is no middle-of-the-road solution. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible. And if we had passed into this region from which there is no return through human aid, we had but 2 alternatives. One was to go on to the bitter end, blotting out our consciousness of our intolerable situation as best we could. Would we agree that people are sitting here with intolerable situations? You bet we are. We may have the big book, we may have these tools, but that doesn't mean I'm using them. When I'm driven by 100 forms of fear, I can assure you, you hurt, threaten, or interfere with anything of mine, and I set away love and tolerance. I set away acceptance. I set that stuff aside because if you scare me bad enough, I react. Can you nod your head on that one for me, please? Can you give me an amen? Can you be a sunbeam of Jesus? Is that asking too much? Oh, I'm kidding. But that's what I'm saying, and I love to me, those are wonderful things. They are the promises of the program. But you cannot come at me when I am driven by 100 forms of fear. My self-centeredness is driven by those 100 forms of fear and lob out the promise. That's like asking me to work the promises, hoping the steps come true. You need to sit me down and get down to the causes and conditions of what are affecting me. If there's somebody in Alcoholics Anonymous crying, and it's traditionally a woman, and bawling, I've watched it. Some of the groups I go to, and they'll pat her on, keep coming back, honey. It'll be fine. Let it go. It's all good. And I'm like, I go up to her, and go, what's going on? My boyfriend. Oh, of course it is. Of course it is. I said, have you got a few minutes? Sure. Let's go outside. We sit down and talk because, to me, there's no crying in baseball. And don't get me wrong. It's okay to cry if you're very, very grateful. And it's okay to cry when your tears are needed. But do not cry on a delusion. If you start to buy into that delusion, which seems to be my disease, I will cry because I'm crying about what I think's going to happen. Or I'm crying because I think what did happen. And with women, holy moly, it becomes a cry fest. Yes? And it's okay to stop somebody. Poor little Andy knows. I'm like going, Andy, dry it up, Andy. Dry it up. Come on. We're not going there. And then when you talk about it, she literally was crying on the delusion of the storyline she had in her head. And I'm telling you, I'm not about letting that go because to me, I love what the gal said that said, I can get something done in 11 minutes, a 10th step. You let that crying start, man, they are circling the drain. And they're like, whoa. It can get dangerous. So what a life based on this self-will looks like is God's in the picture when I need Him. But I am clearly the victim of my own delusion that I can rest, satisfaction, and happiness if I just manage well. That's what I am as a manager. Victim means I'm tricked or duped by my own delusion. Right? Okay, so if I'm tricked or duped by my own delusion, my delusion kicks out a storyline. I believe it's true. You're not moving me off the mark. It's not a disease of denial. It's a disease of delusion. Charlie can come to me and I'll say, I know exactly what just happened there. And he goes, I swear to God, Katie, that did not happen. I go, well, he's lying. He's lying. I know what happened. Are you with me? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he'll sit there and go, I can't believe this. And I will run a storyline through my head. And the only thing that'll work is he's going to have to crater and go, okay, I'm sorry. It didn't really happen, but I'm sorry. I'm like, that's a little bit better. But that's what my delusion does to me. And I love this part, where if we begin to really think about this level of selfishness and self-centeredness, that is what I did. I love when he talked about the bedevilments. Because when I step away from the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I could still be sitting in the middle of meetings, but I've stepped away from the only thing that treats my disease. See, alcohol was the only thing that treated alcoholism. But what treats my disease, when I have these 12 steps and I step away from these 12 steps, I'm sitting in what I call untreated alcoholism, which are the bedevilments that he talked about. And that's exactly what I can be in sobriety. I call it stark raving sober. And here's the thing that this was all, I got all mixed up. The book says, for if an alcoholic failed to enlarge his spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, he couldn't handle certain trials and low spots ahead. That's what the rest of it says. So what I didn't see is, I wrote my first inventory. I'm trying to live on a spiritual experience I had in the first 6 years sober. And that will not do. Let me tell you, as a matter of fact, that's what I see a lot of times happening in Alcoholics Anonymous, is when people share, they just share about when they came in. Just share about when they came in. There's no current experience at all. So I believe that that's what was okay to do. Well, all of a sudden, Joe gets sick. And let me tell you, when this guy gets sick, I don't quite know what's going on. We've been married quite a while. We've had another baby. We are doing it, boy. We are making the money. We're making it look good. We're sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. See, I had to go to a meeting a day. Now, don't hear this wrong, because I am absolutely powerless over what you hear me say. I know what I'm saying, but what you hear, also, trust me. And do not come up and take issue with anything I'm saying. I will have to kill you. And I will have to kill you. Is that, and besides that, it's just terribly inappropriate to do to the speaker. So what ends up happening? Let me tell you, and it'll still happen. And it starts like this. You know, I take issue with something you said. Oh, well, please, go talk to your sponsor first. But this is what ends up happening and I lost my point now. Joe got sick. Oh, thank you. I'm at the mothership. Give me a little bit. So what ended up happening is I'm sitting in meetings every day. And I'm going to 5 meetings a week. And it is a very sick AA meeting. And I am, believe it or not, finding relief. But I'm not finding the freedom I need. Because, see, I can go into an AA meeting just wound tight. And somebody can say just what I needed to hear. And then I get that... And then all of a sudden, by the time that 5:30 meeting comes around, I need another meeting. Because all I was getting was that relief. I wasn't getting that freedom. I was not connected to that power. And Joe gets very, very sick. And the book talks all about that foundation, right? And so what ends up happening is Joe gets sick and we can't figure out what's going on. And this is at a time where insurance is very difficult to get. This is about 15 years ago, and I'm 12 years sober, and insurance is very difficult to get. We have catastrophic insurance. And I'm sitting at my AA meeting, and this girl goes, you know, Katie, you could drive a school bus. And I'm in the fitness business, and I can fit a school bus into my career. And I said, really? She goes, you get an instant HMO just like that. I thought, once again, I'm a doer. Are you guys doers? Absolutely. What do we need? You tell me what I need. You hurt, threaten, or interfere with anything, I'm on it. I can ride that bus for 6 weeks. Get him a couple of quick little tests that are going to cost a fortune, and then we'll just regroup and figure out what to do. See, when you talk about this level of selfishness and self-centeredness, I don't see anything wrong with that. I don't see that the school district is going to rely on me to come and take advantage of them. I don't see that this bus boss is going to see me as somebody who's only staying 6 weeks. My husband is sick. Get out of my way. And that's how I operate. Now, you don't see that on the outside. Instead, I got to get the job. Right? I mean, I can get the job. So I go down there, I get this school bus job. Oh, my God. I am in so over my head. Just take a minute and think about me being a school bus driver. Could you do that? I already take issue with the youth. You know what I mean? The youth and me, you walk in front of my car and you think I'm supposed to stop? Yeah. You disrespect me, I will kill you. Suicide is not my thing. Homicide, I'm in. And then sometimes if I'm crazy enough, I'll kill both of us. Yeah. And I get this school bus job, and I end up getting Joe this insurance, and Joe is not getting the appointment I think he needs to get quickly. Something is wrong in his head. They say it's organic. What do you think when somebody tells you something's organic? I'm like, I looked at the doc, I said, what do you mean by organic? He said, it means it grows. It's not supposed to be there. Well, then just say that. So I take Joe to the hospital and I tell him, look, we're going to get your brain scanned. And this is how it's going to go down. They're going to probably ask you a series of questions. How I knew this is beyond me. But when they tell you to touch your nose, you touch your elbow. When they tell you to touch your knee, you touch your nose. You fail that test because we're getting it. We're getting that brain scan because I'm getting off the bus. I ain't driving this bus anymore. I'm in over my head. How many of y'all know that one? Oh, yeah. See, in over my head is just another way of saying self-will run riot. So I am in over my head. I am on this school bus. I have just, oh, my God. And so we go into the hospital, and this is what Joe does. We sit down, and Joe, the guy goes, so you think there's something wrong with his brain? I got a lot of old ideas on doctors. And it was a male. I got a lot of old ideas on men. This guy comes in. He goes, so you think he's got a problem in his brain? I was like, yes, he does. Ding dong. I'm thinking in my head. And he goes, well, let's just check this out. He says, Joe, why don't you touch your nose? And Joe looks at me and he goes. And I'm like, oh, my God, touch your elbow. Thinking, my God, he's blowing the test. He's blowing this whole deal. I'm going to be driving that school bus. You got to be blowing the test. Are you with me on that? So all of a sudden, he ends up, the doctor's looking at me like, he seems to be doing good. Then he starts to ask him a series of math questions. And Joe can't add 2 plus 2. And he says, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and get him a CAT scan. I thought, well, we could have done that earlier, but whatever. And so he takes Joe back there to get the CAT scan. He brings him out, and Joe and I are sitting there. And the doctor walks in. I will never forget this moment, ever. And he puts his hand right here, the doctor, on my shoulder. It's so heavy. And he says, my God, he's got a gigantic tumor in his brain. It's huge. And, I mean, it was just such a surreal moment. And the very first thought in my mind was, my God, I'm going to be driving this damn bus forever. See, that's the level of self-centeredness I deal with. And I got bad news for you guys. It's the same level of self-centeredness you deal with. See, it's just when you wake up, that your first thought will always be pretty darned ugly. Because that's of our nature. We're missing a lot of filters. And I had no idea that's what it was. Of course, I wasn't going to act on it. You know, and go, God, great, Joe, now I'll be on the bus forever. You know, I mean, you know, I moved quickly into devastation of what this meant. But let me tell you, I was gripped with fear of what am I going to do? This bus requires me to be at the bus barn at 5 a.m. I don't do that. Well, I drove that bus for another 3 years. And my husband's brain tumor was benign. Believe it or not. He had massive brain damage, and it wasn't going to work another day in his life. But this was the man I married. I absolutely loved my husband. I was in this deal. And let me tell you, from that point on, you talk about the bedevilments. You talk about insanity. I already had stepped away from working a program. You throw that fear into my world, back up, man. Back up. Don't get in my way now. And I swear those kids on the bus, they loved me. But let me tell you, there was a guy in a BMW who did not feel that way. You guys know a bus route, right? Okay, you know when the bus is coming. The bus is supposed to be on that bus route at every time of the day. So if you leave at that same time, you're going to try to beat my bus because I got to open the door for the kids to get on, right? Well, this guy in this BMW, it was a fairly affluent neighborhood. He always wanted to beat me. And I swear to God, I'd see him coming and I'd just kick the door open. And he'd look at me and he'd go, bring it, buddy. I got all the power in the world, and you're not driving that BMW past me. And he'd go. Oh, yeah. One time, you know, you're not supposed to ever do anything on the bus that nobody, you know, you're supposed to drive the bus to point A, B, C, and drive it back to the bus yard. Well, we had to vote for a president. I have no idea which one it was. And so I thought, you know, I'm going to run the bus by the voting booth and just jump out and go run and vote, because that's what we do, because I can make this happen. And nobody will notice, so I jump off the bus and I run in there to go vote real quick. And it's taken a little longer, and I'm anxious and everything, and I run back out. I had forgotten to turn my reds off. And there's about 1.5 miles of cars. Yeah. Stop. About 1.5 miles. Because they're all going, man, there's nobody in that bus, but this is a trap. And that's about a $600 ticket, and I'm not passing those reds. I don't care if there's nobody in that bus. I swear I was just like, oh my God. But this one's my favorite story, and you're just going to have to sit tight. So this one's my favorite story. The kids loved me, and there's about 5 boys in the back of the bus, and they're the last route, and you had to go over these 2 bumps that were pretty good bumps, and I had a gas-powered bus, which just really went fast, and I didn't want the diesel, I didn't want the air conditioner, I wanted the bus that went fast, had my little FM radio, you know, and the boys would say, come on, Miss Kate, come on, pop it over those bumps. And I go, man, you guys are going to get me in trouble, you know. And I said, okay, today I'll do it. So I'm looking to the right and looking to the left, be sure nobody can see me. And it comes to a dead end, you got to take a right. And so I get back there, hurry. You know, they run to the back, and they're in that back seat. Man, you could take that thing over both those deals. They'd fly like 5 seats, you know. I mean, they woo way over there. And you know, you operate. This is your world, you know. It's all this. Hey, you. Right here, buddy. You. Oh, I'm looking right at you. Yeah. So I'm watching them, and I go up, and all of a sudden, when I hit that second one, back end of that bus goes down, front end goes up, and I had blown the valve stems off all 4 of the back tires. And all of a sudden, yeah, man, those kids are gone. They're like, pew! And I thought, oh my God, I got out. I swear I have like this. I'm like, turtle bus to base. Turtle Buster base? Yeah, this base. I don't have a clue what happened. But all 4 of my valve stems blew off the back end of my bus. Well, needless to say, the guy's standing there, he's looking at it going, so you don't know what happened? Nope. Because, see, I can't lose that job. And, you know, when people say, can you flat out lie? Oh, you bet I can. I can lie today. I can lie today. If I ever think I'm not, I am delusional. When Sandy Beach got sick in Midland, and it looked like he was having a heart attack on me, and the ambulance came to get him, and the little 21-year-old ambulance driver I thought didn't know what he was doing, the little EMT, and he said, we're going to sit him up, and he sat him up, and that wasn't a good move. I said, okay, you're done. You're done here now. Your job's over. Get him in that ambulance and drive to that whacked out hospital we got to go to in Midland. And the guy goes, we're going to get him on a gurney, and he gets him on a gurney, and he puts him in the back of that ambulance. And I said, I'm going with him. First of all, I was going to get in the back and hit the thing. Come on, go. Time to go. And the guy goes, ma'am, you can't ride in the back. As a matter of fact, you have to be family. I said, I am family. He said, who are you? I said, I am his girlfriend. And the guy looks at me and he goes, really? It's like, I prefer 80-year-old men. You got a problem with that? Just drive. Come on, just drive. This was 3 months ago, guys, okay? This could have been yesterday. And we end up and, we get to the hospital. Well, my story's falling apart bad. And the guy says, what's your boyfriend's birthday? And I'm like, we're just kind of newly dating. So I'm leaning over the guy, saying, Sandy, when's your birthday? That's what I'm saying. So this is the deal, guys. One of the things, too, that I think is so crucial is when we talk about that first thought. See, what I've learned today is that my mind will end up, my very first thought is very ugly. But what ends up happening is I've got a set of tools that will prevent me from acting on that first thought. I am pretty darned aware. Oh, thanks. Yeah, and I got a timer here, too. So, and I may go against what you just wrote. But I just want to warn you, I just quit looking over there from this point on. I know, I'm terrible. I'm just terrible. You have to be pulling me away. So, there we go. Thank you. I got 2 more pages here I got to get through. But, and Ellen went way over, so too bad. The Ellen-ons get to do it, so do I. Well, what ends up happening is that first thought, I'm not responsible for that very first thought. See, I thought the longer I got sober, that went away. Well, that would completely take away the 10th step. The 10th step says I am to watch for these things. Not wait for these things, not if these things crop up, but when these things, to watch for these and when they crop up. Well, let me tell you, my very first thought is always ugly. Oh my gosh, I can walk in a room and look at a woman and go, she needs more conditioner. Is that tacky or what? Yeah, and all of a sudden I'll go, wow, man, I am so self-centered. It's unbelievable that I think everybody should do as I wished. If only everyone would do as I wished, the show would be great. And see, guys, that's what I didn't get. I always thought nobody can know that first thought is so ugly. And the truth of the matter is I just got to keep the balance beam on that. Charlie and I are big shotgun shooters. Don't you love that? I drove a school bus and I shoot shotguns. And so we're big shotgun shooters, man. When they say pull, you need to be watching for that bird and get a dead beat on it, right? And that's the same thing the 10th step is you got to be watching for resentment, dishonesty, selfishness, and fear. And I love that Gail said, I don't see selfishness and dishonesty. If you keep watching for it, you will. You absolutely will. They are the 2 harder ones to see. But I notice that when I start to lie, and my default setting is to just tell a white lie. Say somebody says, have you mailed that package? Yeah. I mean, it is sitting on the front seat of my car, but I'm going to mail it right now. That if I couldn't say, no, you know what, I'm going to get it in the mail this afternoon, that's my barometer. My barometer is right there. Now, I may not need to call somebody up and tell them I was dishonest, but I need to keep an eye on my barometer. Because, see, I'm the only one. I got to spend some time with Mike Lorenz, and I'm assuming everybody knows you're diabetic. They do now. Okay, so Mike's diabetic, and I got to spend 5 days with Mike diabetic, and I know about the disease of diabetes, but I had no idea. He had to check his blood sugar levels about 6 times. Then he had to give himself an insulin shot, and then we had to kind of gear our intake of food around that, right? Well, let me tell you, first of all, when he's in my car, I drive a sports car, and he is unbuckling that belt buckle to give himself that shot. We women know the sound of that belt buckle. I swear it went up. Okay, hold on just a minute. I'm going to step out of the car. He checks it, he goes, oh man, I'm going to have to take a shot. And I thought, whoa, belt buckle? Come on, you guys got to be with me on the belt buckle noise. You boys don't even hear a belt buckle. I can hear a belt buckle 3 rooms away. And so, now he's not dropping his drawers, don't get me wrong, but what ended up happening is that made me start thinking about that 10th step. That's what's required every day of his life. And if I am not keeping a finger on the pulse of if you're not calling your sponsor, if you're talking to somebody every 2 weeks, you are not keeping your finger on the pulse of that self-centeredness. And trust me, it's 60 to 63 is all behind a good motive. It's always behind a good motive. When I'm being, at my length of sobriety, I know when I'm trying to screw over on you. I am so well aware of that. But when I have a good motive, like for the name of my AA home group or for the name of my business, I love the guy that got up and talked about somebody trying to do at his work what he knew was not right. See, when I'm behind trying to bring that guy down, I can't even see through that delusion. And all of a sudden, I love the paragraph on page 61. See, it says on page 62, selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of my trouble. It's driven by those 100 forms of fear. That's my self-centered fear, right? I'm afraid I'm not going to get what I think I need. I'm afraid I'm going to lose what I already got. I'm afraid I'm not going to get the job. I get the job. I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. I get the relationship. I'm deathly afraid I'm going to lose it. I get the sobriety. I'm scared to death I'm going to lose it. It doesn't matter what it is. That's that level of self-centered fear. Fear is not my problem. That's my God-given emotion. It's when it becomes self-centered. See, it's so deep in my DNA, I don't even understand that I've got it going on. I think you're doing it to me when it's actually coming from me. So the work that I have to do is I have to see where my troubles are of my own making. That's a promise in this program. See, if I want to be free, the problem's got to be me. I've got to see where I'm a self-seeker even when trying to be kind. A producer of confusion rather than harmony. Where did I set the ball rolling? Where am I to blame? And that's what this is all about. And I'll call my sponsor up and go, oh my gosh, I've written hundreds of inventories on Charlie. Hundreds. Because it says I have to. Somebody said there's not much direction in the 10th step. There doesn't need to be. It was 4 through 9. Those are the directions. When it says inventory, where do I go back to? What the 4th step says about me writing inventory. It says this is a self-manifested in various ways is what caused my problems. Well, let me tell you what, in a marriage, you think you're going to have some problems? Come on. Yes. Where are the majority of your problems going to be? In your marriage. Absolutely. Charlie comes from an educational background. He wants me to go see that stupid museum of some luministic painting. Whatever. Guy's got a mistress. I already don't like him. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling you, the way he raises his kids, the way I raise my kid, oh my gosh. I mean, it's constant. And do I get to just talk to my sponsor about that? Oh, I got to get down to my old ideas. See, if he loved me, he would change everything. Is that too much to ask? See, and one time we were having a big old fight, and I'm keeping an eye on the time. One time we had a big old fight, and he said, I'm telling him about everything he's doing wrong, because that's how I fight. I'm telling him everything he's doing wrong. He goes, Katie, sometimes there's some things you do to me that really bother me. And I went like this. I was shocked. I really was shocked that there was anything wrong with me. That's delusional. And see, when I'm running on that stuff, oh my God, here's some, the actor running the whole show. That's what I do. If everyone would stay put, if all my arrangements would stay put, if everyone would do as I wish, this would be wonderful. And I am literally the sheriff who is constantly running the show. Jill's starting to cough over here. Just thought I'd share that with you. I'm going 3 more minutes, so I will calm you down. So in the third step, it says the terms we make, right? Stay close to him, perform his work well, he'll take care of what I need. So when I have got to know that these promises are coming true if I'm doing what is required. I'm staying close to him and I'm performing his work well. So I'm getting unblocked. That's a must. I must be unblocked in order. I cannot seek God. I must get connected to this power, right? I am seeking God, but I must be able to get unblocked before I can start this process. So I get unblocked and I help his children. That's what's required of me to do, and he will take care of what I need. The picture doesn't look that good. And what ended up happening with Joe is all of a sudden after 6 years of, he was 23 years sober, he ended up dying of a heroin overdose. He went back after 23 years sober because we were sitting in untreated alcoholism. And that's the problem, guys. I had 3 anxiety attacks in untreated alcoholism. Blow in the bag anxiety attacks, and my poor husband, bless his heart, one time handed me a plastic bag while I was having one. Just almost killed me. It's like, you know. And I got on the antidepressants, but the truth of the matter is if you're in the bedevilments and you're working an amazing Alcoholics Anonymous program, you might be that few percent that need an antidepressant. But I did not need that. At that time, that's the only thing that fixed me. I was covered with the malady. And the danger of us being covered with that malady is what ends up happening is I go get a little root canal, and that doctor gives me some Vicodin, because I'm going to need some Vicodin. And I have no idea that triggers the allergy. And before you know it, I need more dental work. And that's how it works. I'm telling you, I'm not going to drink today. Whatever. I have 15 years sober. I'm not drinking. But all of a sudden, I don't realize it sounds like somebody who's made a choice here. Well, I am running out of time, and I know I'm making her a nervous wreck over here. And so one of the things I want to talk about, though, is if you're not clear on what's on 60 to 63, please, please, please read that with somebody that will study it, because it is behind a good motive. And I'm not really worried about the new guy. There's plenty of hope for the new guy in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm more worried about the guy who's got 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. That's the guy that I'm worried about. Mike calls it middle management. And middle management, our ego tells us we're fine. It's a shapeshifter. And it will constantly convince me that I'm okay, that it's really not that bad. If I can just explain it to you, you'll understand. And what ends up happening behind that, guys, is I drift farther and farther away from this program, and I don't even know it. So please do consider some of the things that I said. I hope I came across with a way to get your ego to hear some of the things. I think we all drift in and out of spiritual growth. That's the nature of our disease. And Charlie and I are just absolutely on fire with Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to end with one thing. I just looked at Jill. There's something out of the daily reflections, and I'm not the greatest fan of daily reflections, I'll be honest with you, but there is some stuff in there that I do like, and it's February 23rd. What glorious mysteries paradoxes are. They do not compute, yet when recognized and accepted, they affirm something in the universe beyond human logic. When I face a fear, I am given courage. When I support a brother or sister, my capacity to love myself is increased. When I accept pain as a part of the growth experience, I realize a greater happiness. When I look at my dark side, I am brought into a new light. When I accept my vulnerabilities and surrender to a higher power, I am graced with unforeseen strength. I stumbled through the doors of AA in disgrace, expecting nothing from life, and I've been given hope and dignity. Miraculously, the only way to keep these gifts of the program is to pass it on. I do thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'll see you the rest of the weekend. Thank you. Thanks. I'm sorry I ran